folks, another episode of Empower Online then, and this time I am very pleased to be speaking to George Fitzgerald, who we have a lot to unpack. He's got a huge wealth of experience in the martial arts, 16 different black belts or equivalents of that, instructorships, etc., in 16 different arts. One of the only UK person to be certified to black belt under Joe Lewis, black belt under Bill Wallace as well. Plenty of experience to talk about. George, how are you?
I'm very good, thanks, Dan. Thank you for that little intro. Thank you.
That's all right. Thank you very much for coming on.
I think I should have a warmer top on like you. I'm starting to feel a bit cold.
Yeah, I am now. The weather is starting to change. Autumn is in the air.
Yeah.
So what a CV of martial arts. Very impressive. Obviously, we met the other week, or when was it? A couple of months ago, actually. Now, wasn't it? At the martial arts event with Steve Carriage and the Bruce Lee event. Very, very cool.
Yeah, definitely.
And yeah, we got chatting then, so I thought I need to get this guy on the podcast.
And thank you for inviting me. It's lovely. I've seen, I had a quick look. You've had some great guests on there, so it's great. You're doing a good job, Dan.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Let's start then at the beginning of your journey. I think you started properly training, I think I read, at about 7 years old with your dad, teaching you kind of some boxing and some kind of self-defense stuff, and he was known as the bouncer, yeah?
Well, I've been doing it 52 years now, so I'll just kind of give it a brief.
Yeah.
Really thinking, me thinking, where did I start with all this? First of all, I used to say always when I was 11 with judo. Then I thought, well, hang on, my dad was teaching me boxing when I was 7. But I was thinking even before that, from the age of 4, I started watching, don't laugh, the Batman TV series.
Okay, yeah.
And everything just grew from there. And I used to read all the Batman comics, and of course said that he was always training in boxing and jiu-jitsu and martial arts. And I didn't realise I would have seen Bruce Lee as Kato and the Green Hornet when he made a guest appearance, not even realising. So all of this was part of my upbringing. And my father, who was called the bouncer, I know there's a famous martial artist in this country who uses that name as well, but it's even on my dad's grave, the bouncer. He was quite well known in, especially the Irish community in South London. But anyway, he's a big man, 6'2". I would never publicly say, a fraction of the things I've heard about that he was involved in, but and I couldn't prove most, and I don't care. For instance, he did have a run-in with the notorious Cray twins. And basically, I can't prove this, but I don't care. It's not for me to prove. They did back down to him and basically shook his hand. And that's, there's a million stories. So I was brought up with all of this. And plus,
no mean feat the Cray's backing down. That's no mean feat, surely.
When I say back down, he basically turned up at a graveyard where they were going to have a big whatever. And the fact that he turned up and basically on his own, they said, whoa, and everything was... Their little dispute with him was dropped and they shook hands and that was it, yeah. But, like I said, I can't prove that and I don't need to prove it, but anyway. And my dad brought me, I always joke, sorry? I always joke that my bedtime stories were things like my favourite movie of all time is John Wayne in the Alamo. And I've watched that hundreds of times. And that's basically, if you don't know the story, there's, I don't know, less than 200 guys defending against thousands of guys, and they knew they were going to die. But and that's been my attitude all my life. It's got me into a lot of scrapes. Sometimes my friends didn't even want to be out with me because they knew if something happened, I wasn't backing down or anything. And that's not trying to big myself up or anything like that. It's just that is my attitude. I will not give up. I will not give in. I don't care who it is, what the numbers are, whatever. We all got to die at some point. I'd rather die physically than die inside because I've surrendered or given in to something. In fact, I can't really show it here on the camera here now. I'm jumping. When I did the Russian martial arts sambo, I was doing it for 3 months. Started in September 97, and in December 97, I entered the British Championships. And the guy I was fighting, he'd been doing it for years, even went to train in Russia with all the masters. He got me in, an arm lock, and I'd learned sort of how to get out of it, but I wasn't good enough to get out of it. But I wouldn't tap, so he just kept putting the pressure on and broke my arm. I let out a little whimper, Never went to the doctor, never went to the hospital, and now I've got a permanently bent arm. I can't really show it on the camera here, but permanently bent. But basically, what I'm saying is I'm not saying this was a good thing because it was only a sport, but I would not submit. I wasn't going to give in. I didn't care what the consequence was. And that's been my attitude throughout life because, as you said, I've studied with some of the greats, many of the greats, and my goal has never been to be the best at an individual martial art because no disrespect to any martial art, I don't think any single martial art has all the answers. And when I say all the answers,
Yeah,
that always
I agree.
depends on what your goals are, because obviously there's many reasons to
What
do
you pursue,
martial
yeah,
arts.
yeah,
To me, all the things we talk about, like health and fitness, the spirituality, all of this is all very, very true. But to me, none of that mattered. And to be honest, I think you can get that from other things, going from the gym, doing yoga, etc., etc. My number one
yeah,
criteria is, does it work for self-defense? And I hate this term now where you even see different arts called realistic martial arts or, this. I think, well, surely all martial arts should be realistic. And if they're not, why are you doing it? It has to, and I
mm-hmm.
hate that term work in the streets. But you know what I'm saying? I'm talking about working real life. That's why you see some people call things urban, blah, 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 whatever. I think, what's that? Is it only going to work in an
Yeah,
urban
sure,
situation? Little things like
yeah,
that. But I'm jumping guns. I'm sorry. So yeah, my dad basically had me
that's
doing
okay.
boxing from the age of 7. I never went to a boxing gym or anything like that, but he was a notorious street fighter. Was called the bouncer. Blah 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 blah. He was a military policeman with NATO forces in the Irish Army at one point, and so on and so on. But then, of course, all the Kung Fu, David Carradine come out, I think, in 1972, and I was watching that. And then the real Bruce Lee / Kung Fu craze really hit, sadly, when he died in 1973. And so that's where I class
Yeah,
my martial arts started from properly, when I was 11 in 1973. And my father said to me, well, do you want to join a boxing club or a judo school? And I thought, judo's a martial art, I mean, sometimes I wish I'd joined the
sure.
boxing, but judo, and I started judo. And sadly, out of all the people I've trained with, it's my first teacher, and he's the only teacher I have no idea who he was, what his name was. I need to try maybe
Okay.
contact BJA or something and see if I can trace him back. But anyway, so I started doing judo for a while, and then I started dabbling in lots of other things. I did some Tamiki Aikido for a while. And I used to follow, I mean, you can't see it here. I've got a huge library of books, hundreds and hundreds and thousands of magazines. And so I was going through every book I could. Of course, there was no real JKD in the early 70s or anything like that. And I used to follow, I don't know if you've heard of Bruce Tegner. I
Mm-hmm.
followed a lot of Bruce
Yeah, I've heard
Tegner
of him. Yeah,
books. I believe Bob Breen,
yeah.
he liked the Bruce
I think
Tegner
that's the
books as
link.
well.
Yeah,
Yeah, very
yeah.
basic, but again, of course, at my young age, it was great, And I was still getting into situations, so that real life experience was all around me all the time. And then my biggest thing was in the 25th of September, 1978. I walked into the school of my Wing Chun teacher, Victor Khan, who was one of
Mm-hmm.
Yip Man's top disciples. And,
Excellent.
that was it. I mean, I couldn't train with Bruce Lee. Obviously, he was dead, and there was no real JKD. I know Bob was sort of starting it all up then and everything. In fact, I went to the
Yeah,
first Stanley Santo seminar that Bob hosted.
at
I
Bob's,
did
yeah, in the
attend
Hoxton.
that. But yeah, I was at
Yeah.
1979, I think it was. I was at that. But yeah, I really got into the Wing Chun because Victor Khan was a fellow Yip Man student and he knew Bruce Lee. He actually reputedly taught Bruce Lee the first section of the Sealam Tao. So
Okay.
at that time, it was the closest I could get to train with Bruce Lee. And
Link. Yeah.
although I know there's a lot of different opinions about the JKD world, I personally have always thought, well, you need to kind of follow Bruce Lee's path if you really want to understand his way of thinking. That's just my opinion. There's lots of opinions. So again, with the Wing Chun, and I know people say, oh yeah, but he threw the Wing Chun out. I think do
Oh,
this, I don't know,
you've gone
Muay Thai
quiet,
entry
George.
into this Wing Chun combination, into this grappling takedown, whatever. It doesn't work like that, you know. But I'm sorry, I do waffle on a bit because I get so excited about all this. Going back, so I
No,
studied
go on.
Wing Chun. I dabbled with other
Go on.
things like Wushu, Quan, and various other martial arts. But then I started with Wing Chun, and then it just progressed. Was doing that for many years. I still class myself as a Wing Chun student, but then just in no particular order. Let me think, or kind of an order. Oh, I went to a seminar. I think it was in 1980. Master Sken of Muay Thai. He came down to London,
Sure.
and I was just blown away
Yeah,
by
a
it.
legend. Yeah.
Yeah, and at that time he was talking about maybe opening up a school in London, and I'm thinking, oh no, I do not want to stop my Wing Chun, which was very expensive at them days. And I knew,
Okay.
and I was still at school at that time because I stayed on in the sixth form. I thought I can't afford Wing Chun and Muay Thai. Oh, what am I going to do? What am I going? But my decision was made because in the end, Master Sken didn't open a school down there.
Right.
But I
Okay.
remained friends with
Big
him
for you.
for all them years, and I am now a crew in Muay Thai under Master Sken as well. So, you know, he's one of my best friends, one of the best, definitely one of the best teachers out there. You know, definitely, and nicest person you could meet. But again, I'm
Brilliant.
jumping. So at one point, I started with judo. I did some aikido, etc. But I thought my grappling is probably my weakest area, and this was long before all UFC and that kind of thing. You know, really, or maybe around the same time, I suppose actually. But I started looking, okay, where can I go to learn grappling arts? Which grappling art do I want to do? And I did think I want to go back and get my black belt in judo.
Hmm.
And where I was living, I lived most of my life in Battersea in South London, and just
Yeah.
across the water was the Budokai, I believe the
Okay.
oldest martial arts dojo in Europe.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that would have been the ideal choice for me to go and train at, and I was going to. But then in a magazine article, I read about Martin Clark, the
Hmm.
late Martin Clark. And
Yeah.
I saw that in his school in Sittingbourne in Kent, he was teaching judo. He was ex Olympic judo squad, etc. He was teaching judo. He was teaching jiu-jitsu, which
Yeah.
I don't think I need to say traditional jiu-jitsu or Japanese jiu-jitsu. It's jiu-jitsu. I think it's the other way around. If someone's doing Brazilian jiu-jitsu, you need to label it BJJ. You know,
Specify that.
so
Yeah.
that's just a small point. Anyway, so, and he was also teaching this thing I'd never heard of called, he called it, to be kind of politically correct in this country, it was called Sambo, whereas the proper name really is Sambo,
Okay.
Russian martial art.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, you know, what a combination. So again, to cut along, so I started training with one of his instructors in London, a great guy called Ross Mockridge. And then from Ross, I went on to then train fully with Martin. And I mean, them classes were something else, you know. You go in there and there's in a class of, I don't know, 15 other people training with, virtually all of them were black belts and high level black belts. And each one you went with had their own
Wow.
particular
Okay.
strengths. I remember one guy at the time, he must
Sure.
be in his mid 60s. And no matter, he wasn't very aggressive or attacking, but no matter what I tried to do, it was impossible to throw him or do anything, you know. Was another
Yeah.
big
Yeah.
guy. He'd be there grappling on the floor with him, and you know, you couldn't do anything with him. And he's playing with him, and then all of a sudden they shout out, 30 seconds left. And you go, oh, 30 seconds, and he just lock you up or choke you or whatever, you know. So in
Yeah.
that classes, the amount of information and knowledge that I was absorbing was just amazing. And from that, you know, I progressed to
Mm.
my brown belt in judo. Still haven't taken the black belt, which I may or may not do in the future. I'm not a belt hunter. Don't get me wrong. Even though I say on my CVs, you say 16 black belts are equivalent. That's just a byproduct. It's not I'm looking to get, oh, I've got to get another
Yeah.
black belt. No, no, I know what I want to
Yeah.
train in. I know who I want to train in. If they then give me something for that, fine. But I'm getting the knowledge. That's what I
Great.
want.
Yeah.
So anyway, through
Yeah.
Martin, eventually the brown belt in judo, a black belt in his system of jiu-jitsu, Seishu Tekino jiu-jitsu, and through meeting, hello, is that your sparring partner? One
That's
of
it.
them.
Yeah. She wins every time.
Yeah. I also got a black belt in something called Mizoru Jiu-Jitsu, and I was the British chief instructor for that. At one point, I was
Wow.
general secretary for the British Combat Sambo Association because I've got black belts also then in Sambo wrestling, which is a sport,
Yeah.
and then Martin's hybrid version, which he called Combat Sambo. I told you I broke my arm in that competition in 1997 after 3 months training, but I went back the following year and got the gold medal in the Masters
Oh,
division.
amazing.
So,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So I've won a few medals. That's the only
Fantastic.
time I've done sport martial arts. I did one judo competition, but didn't come anywhere in it. I've won several medals in, as I say, Sambo. I've won bronze medals, silver, gold. I did a competition in Kurash, which is another, I can't remember if that's from Uzbekistan or one of them places. I did the first time they did a tournament for that here. I got a bronze medal in that. But that's the only competing in martial arts I've done, and that was in the grappling.
Did you find it
Again, no
hard to like
particular.
separate the martial
Sorry,
arts? Did you find
sorry.
it difficult to separate the martial arts? Like if you were doing the Wing
Good
Chun, did you find
question.
it difficult to then separate
Yeah,
all the different elements?
yeah, I understand. Right, the way I answer that, people look at all these different martial arts as no particular Wing Chun, Thai boxing, whatever, but different individual martial arts, and they are individual. But
Mm.
the way I've looked at it, I don't look at the differences. I look at the things that are similarities, and there's so much similarities. I mean, to,
Yeah,
in the grappling arts, I say it's the same throw, it's the same arm lock, it's just spelled different. It
sure.
might be
Yeah, yeah,
spelt in Japanese, it might be spelt in Russian, it might be spelt in Brazilian. It's the same thing.
yeah,
It's the same hold,
yeah.
it's the same lot. So I looked at, that's why I was very uh, deliberate in which martial arts I decided to go with and who I decided to go with.
Sure.
And so eventually, for me, like people say, oh, that's chop suey martial arts. You've got all these mixed martial arts. To me, yeah, they're like that. But if you work them and you're training them and you've got the right mindset and the right heart, it's not this, it's this.
That's that.
It
Yeah,
becomes one. So, I think I mentioned, I've never had the goal to be the best Wing Chun guy, the best JKD guy, the best whatever. I just try to be the best martial artist that I can be without, saying the best this, best that. I just want to be the best I can be. And then in
yeah.
turn, I want to be the best instructor for my students. I run my school
Sure.
for 23 years. And now I teach the privates.
Wow.
Uh, that's a
Yeah.
small, of course, then I trained in Filipino martial arts. My first instructor was great Krishna Gadanya, black belt under him.
Yeah. Perfect.
I eventually,
Yeah.
my association with Richard Basilla, I got black belt under the legendary Kakoi Kaneti in Dossi Paris
Yeah. And
Eskrima.
Dr. Harris. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
again, I'm sort of missing steps out for my JKD. I always considered myself a Bruce Lee JKD guy, but I didn't do what I would never mention names. I didn't do what some do and start saying, yeah, I teach JKD, blah, blah, when I hadn't had no certification in or anything like that. So even when I
Sure.
opened up my school, which was 1989, as far as I was concerned, it was a JKD school. But I thought, nah, I can't do that. So I said, right, what? I'm not going to call it the Bruce Lee school. I can't do that either. I thought, what can I do? So I did an indirect reference, which by my own admission is corny. I thought, Bruce Lee, Way the Dragon, Tang Lung. So I called my school the Tang Lung Combat Academy. And my
Nice.
my
Cool.
my kind of my version of JKD, I called it Tang Lung Combat,
Yeah.
and it went from there. But then over the years, yeah, I've become the London representative and qualified under the late and great Sifu Larry Hartsell.
Yeah.
You
Perfect.
know,
Yeah, I want to
yeah, I
ask you
mean,
a lot about him because obviously he was such a big
uh,
name and such a big man as well in the JKD world. So yeah, tell me a
yes,
little bit about Larry,
I
please.
think
Because obviously
sadly
I've heard
sometimes
stories
he's a
from
bit,
Spain,
yeah.
but yeah,
Sadly, I
it's good
think
to
he's
hear.
sometimes a bit overlooked. I don't know why, but yeah, I mean, not only that, he was the nicest man you could ever meet, and very, very quiet, very softly spoken, southern gentleman,
Yeah,
But as you
yeah,
said, I mean, many people's opinion was like he was the best fighter of the JKD
yeah,
but that's always going to be debatable. But obviously, that's why I went to train with him because I thought, yeah, he's the man, he's the guy, and everyone thinks of him like as the grappling guy, which of course
yeah,
he does. But he knew it all. You know, I mean, his boxing, especially what he guys call now dirty boxing, etc.
yeah,
Fantastic. So good at all the screamer, the sticks, and the knives. You know, I did a lot of knife work with him, which I love. Because although I've got like the black boxing, warriors of screamer, and Dossi Perez, a screamer, and not a black belt, but also trained under Hockheim, who's another, not
Yeah.
quite, many people don't know him. That's a shame. He's absolutely
Force
fantastic, you know.
necessary, is it? Force necessary
Sorry?
guy? Is it a force necessary guy?
Sorry, say
Is that
again?
force necessary? Is it that guy?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
Sorry. I'm going deaf in my old age. Probably been hit too many
That's all right.
times.
No worries.
But yeah, force. He does force necessary, which is the unarmed combat. I was one of the first guys in this country to get a black belt under that, and that was you had to do 150 fight scenarios, fighting with people, like proper fighting, unarmed. They've got knife, they've got a stick, multiple opponents. You've got weapons. Every possible
Wow.
scenario that you could think of, we had to fight it and do it. But anyway, yeah. So that was that. But he also then does. He calls it Filipino combatives. You know, so he's because he's what was it? Modern Chinese. He's
Yeah.
especially a black belt in under Remy Presas. But he's done
Yeah.
many martial arts. So he actually calls it the Pacific Archipelago Combatives. It's a blend of seal out, different versions of a screamer, all kinds of things. And I'm not a black belt in that, but I'm qualified to teach that. I forget how we got onto that, but his thing is all about reality, and my thing has always been reality. So again, that's why I zoomed in to train with him. Larry Hartzell was known as the fighter, so I zoomed in on him. Sadly, when Larry passed, I then went on to train with again the late Richard Bastillo, because he was
Yeah.
also known as a fighter in the JKD community,
The
you know,
boxer,
and
yeah, the
he was.
boxer.
Yeah, and yeah, that was his main background, boxing. Yeah, and I still remember giving me a private lesson in my. Well, I've just moved this year, but my garage gym in my old place, I've had Joe Lewis in there, I've had Larry Hartzell in there, I've had Richard
Wow.
Bastillo in
Yeah.
there, Danny Goobert of a Screamer used to give me private
Yeah. Yeah.
lessons in there, all in this little place. But yeah, I
Amazing.
remember Richard giving me a private boxing lesson in there. Brilliant. But
I bet.
and
Yeah.
when I used to go and train, for instance, I know I'm jumping all over the place here.
No, no,
When I
you
was training
go.
with Larry over in LA, and we did the training at his house, and we also did it at the Inner Santo Academy. And I
Yeah.
still remember we're in the Inner Santo Academy. I don't know if you've been there, Dan.
I have. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you know then. I'm looking at everything and think, oh my, wow, look at it all, you know. And I'm starting to take photos, and Larry said, "Oh, you're not really supposed to do that." He says, "Well, that's
Yeah.
okay." Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I heard Larry goes, "Oh, here's Dan," and Dan just drove up. So it was literally myself, Larry, and Dan in the school on our own.
Wow.
And one of my most treasured photos is of me standing next to Larry in the Inner Santo Academy. Dan was the photographer.
Oh
And then
wow.
there's one with me standing next to Dan, and Larry was
Larry's
the
a photographer.
photographer. So
Sure.
I treasure them.
Yeah. I bet.
So you know, I've done training with seminars with Dan over the years. Not so much in London because I thought, to be honest, I just thought they were too crowded. You know, there's too many people back in the day. You know, I was like I
Yeah.
said,
Yeah.
I was at the original ones. Did the seminars. I did some classes at the Inner Centre Academy, and then when I was trained with Richard Bastillo, Dan was always one of the guest instructors to come in and do. Again, it was a relatively small group, maybe 20 of us, so that was
Okay.
something else, you know. That was
Yeah.
another
Yeah.
great school, the IMB Academy, the not the original one I'm talking about, but the one that under Richard Bastillo. I mean,
Yeah.
wow, so fantastic, you know. So I've been like, because at IMB Academy, I've got photos where I'm using Brucey's hand gripper,
I've seen them. Yeah.
Bruce
Yeah. Yeah.
Lee's spring dummy, for
Yeah.
instance, and it had the big bag. It wasn't Bruce Lee's original one, but it was a replica of that. Tried to kick it, but it kind of did nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a big old bag. That
Yeah.
was it. £700 or something.
Oh yeah. But
Yeah.
and
Big bag.
it's just gone on like that. And oh, this was before Richard died, but I'd met Joe Lewis way back in the year 2000.
Hmm.
And I was like a kid in a sweet shop. I was with my two children at the time. We went over to this event in Florida, and I saw Joe sitting at a table with all these photos and videos. And I'm saying to my kid, look, that's Joe Lewis. And I didn't know who Joe Lewis was, you know. But I was like literally like a kid.
Oh yeah.
And I walked over, and he's sitting there, and I don't know if you know, he's notorious for these giant knuckles as big as my fist, each knuckle. And I'm
Okay.
looking down at him, and he looked up at me, and he didn't say a word. He just looked at me like a death stare. And I'm thinking, again, no disrespect to anyone. I've never ever been intimidated by any other martial arts but he looked at me, and I thought, oh my God, he would kill you as
Shit.
soon as. But
Yeah.
he must have taken a liking to me because we've got on fantastic. And I trained with him, his online training program from there and so on, and does seminars at my school. And then unfortunately he was diagnosed with brain cancer. And
Yeah.
I went over to he has an annual conference. I went over there in 2011, and I'd not been horrible. I thought this may be my last chance to be with him and see him and everything, you know. So I went over there, and that was something else. I mean, the skill level of the people under him, people that most people will never ever hear of, you know, because they're not putting themselves on a different plateau, you know. But anyway, I did all that, and I'm
Yeah.
doing the
Yeah.
training and doing the sparring and all the fighting and everything else. And it was, like I said, it was tough, and I was still really jet lagged and got really bad cramps because I wasn't drinking water, whatever. And then on
Yeah. Yeah.
the Saturday evening of this event, sitting there with all hundreds of people, including Bruce Lee's wife Linda, and all these other top martial
Linda. Yeah.
artists, and it was a kind of a happy, sad occasion because everyone knew Joe's condition. And Linda was up on the stage at the microphone. She's speaking, and she's speaking about Joe. And I don't know if I should. I could see Joe. You could see he's sobbing. He was crying. You know,
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
very, very emotional. But anyway, so we're sitting there and all that, and they start announcing that they're going to start giving out the black belt certificates and so on and so on. And I'm just sitting there thinking, oh God, if I, because I'd meant to go to that conference for several years. You know, I kept putting it off, putting it off, putting it off. And that's why I thought that time, well, I can't put it off anymore. And I'm sitting there, and I'm sitting and talking to guys, and suddenly one of the people I know, I think it might be Mike Allen, the vice president at the time, who became a great, great friend of mine. He come rushing over. He says, George, if you want your black belt certificate, you've got to go over there and sign it. I'm like, what? What? So I run over to the table. I had to put my signature on the certificate. It's, where is it? It's one up the top there. I don't know if you can see it, the red frame one. And
Oh yeah. Cool.
yeah, basically then my name was called out, went up, and Joe presented me with my black belt certificate, which I wasn't expecting, and you know, talked about me,
Wow.
saying I'm his guy in England to all these people and so on and so on. And of course that was such an honour. And so yeah, I ended up being definitely the only person in England black belt under, or the UK, and in fact the
Yeah.
only
Yeah.
person outside of the United States, except for one other guy who lived in Canada, who sadly has died now. So that was a great honour for me. And
Wow.
again, then people have mixed ideas about Joe Lewis because yeah, he could be kind of arrogant or in your face. It depends what way he took to you, to be honest.
Sure.
But even in the
Yeah.
JKD world, like, because I've seen videos of him, sometimes he's kind of putting down Bruce Lee, other times he's not. And Joe was in my
Yeah. Yeah.
house. Joe was in my house. He was sitting in, playing with my cat. I don't know why I didn't take photos of that. He's sitting in my car, driving from London to Birmingham. And of course, I'm asking him the questions. And one of them was like about Bruce Lee. And he said Bruce Lee was the greatest. He didn't quite say he was the greatest
Mm-hmm.
fighter. I admit he didn't say. He said Bruce Lee was easily the greatest martial arts teacher there was. And he said
Yeah.
no man has stood in front of him who was as fast as Bruce Lee. And what I
Okay.
think with Joe, if he ever says anything that seems negative about JKD or Bruce Lee, to be honest, he didn't have a very high opinion of most of the other JKD guys. He didn't think they were doing it the way Bruce wanted.
Yeah.
And the other thing, of course, he had an ego. If he didn't have an ego, he wouldn't be as good as he was, and so on. And that's the same with
Yeah. Sure.
Muhammad
He wouldn't be Joe
Ali
Lois.
or
Yeah.
anyone. If they don't believe they are the best, you know, so to big someone else up, even if it's Bruce Lee, it's kind of pulling himself down. So I can understand him not wanting to go on about, oh, Bruce was this and Bruce. And I do know stories of people, you know, this age old question, did Bruce spar with this one and that one? And I do know stories, which I won't say publicly because it's for me to know.
Uh-huh.
And I know, as far as I'm concerned, and then no one is unbeatable. No one, absolutely no one. But as far as I'm concerned, Bruce Lee was the best. And at any
Yes.
given, at one point, no one would have beaten him. You get all these arguments about, so MMA fighter would slaughter him now, or this guy because he's so much bigger. Yeah. Well, that to me shows you haven't been in real fights. You've only been in competition
Yeah.
fights. I've been in fight. I mean,
Yeah, that's different.
I'm a little bit overweight now. I need to lose weight, but that's partly because most of my life I was very skinny, always trying to put on weight. Now I've got a mental block about, oh, I don't want to lose weight. I've got to keep weight on. But I've been in.
Yeah.
Again, this is not bigging myself up. When I was about 11 stone, I've been in fights, and not in this. I'm talking about in the street again. I've been in fights with people I don't, because you didn't step on a weighing scale, but just look at me. If you've got to be at least 3, 4, 5 stone heavier than me, you know. And
Yeah.
being in fights like that, and I'm still here. So when people say, "Oh,
Yeah.
well,"
Yeah.
I mean, I met Chuck Norris a couple of years ago, and I had
Cool.
mixed feelings about Chuck Norris. But meeting him in person, he was a super nice guy. Super nice guy. In fact, he's invited me now to do a black belt test under him, because if I
Wow.
do, it makes me one of the few people in the world who are black belt directly under Joe Louis, Bill Wallace, and Chuck Norris.
Get the
But we'll see.
trilogy.
It's not
Cool.
really my thing, but it's another challenge, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah.
Variety.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying, of course, Chuck Norris at times has not really, I think, given Bruce Lee the praise that he wants. But again, yeah, but he's a aspiring movie star, ex-world champion in karate and so on. I can understand them not wanting to big up someone else. You know,
Yeah. Of course.
it's human behaviour.
It's egos. Everyone's got one. Even Bruce had one. Notoriously.
Yeah, of course. Do you know what
Yeah.
people? You know, this question sometimes they say to, if in life you could meet anyone, whether they're living or dead, who would you want to meet? And apart from the obvious things like both my parents are dead, apart from things like that, most people would say, I'm sure you'd want to meet Bruce Lee. And I've thought about that before. And of course, there's 99% of me says, yeah, 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 yeah. And then the other part of me, I'm not sure. I think his ego might,
Yeah.
I
It's
don't
that
know. I don't
never
know,
meet your
you know.
heroes thing, isn't it?
Yeah,
Never meet your
exactly. Yeah,
heroes.
exactly.
Yeah.
And that's happened to me. Again, I would not
Yeah.
mention any names. I've met people, and when I found out certain things, I thought, oh, I wish I didn't know that. You know, that kind of thing, you know.
Actually. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I've
100%.
had such great conversations. I mentioned about Joe Louis driving in my car. I've had Richard Pastillo in my car several times. I've had Larry Hartsell in my car several times. Bill Wallace in my car. Bill Wallace. I mean, that's the last black belt test I took in 2018, and I was just accompanying a
Yeah.
friend of mine who's absolutely fantastic at kicking and so on and so on. I've never claimed to be a kicker as such. And I was
Yeah.
accompanying him. And when we turned up this seminar, we were late, and Bill was actually in a bad mood. And he just said to me, "Get
Right.
changed." I thought, why do I need to get changed? You know, I'm not coming to do a test. But anyway,
Yeah.
I got
Yeah. Sure.
changed.
Why?
I thought he might need me to assist my friend who was doing the test and so on. He told me off
Yeah.
because I was wearing a Joe Louis t-shirt. I thought, what?
Right.
Joe's his best friend, but he wasn't in the best of moods. So he says, "Why have you wore Joe Louis
Right.
t-shirt to my seminar?" So I thought, oh,
Ooh.
this isn't
Yeah.
going well, you know. But anyway, so he started doing this test for my friend, and I quickly, within a few minutes, I thought, oh my God, he's testing me as well, you know.
I'm getting
And
tested too. Yeah. Yeah.
we'd come from the UK martial arts show the weekend. I had no sleep the night before. On the way
Yeah.
down, they were driving on the motorway. I stuffed myself with ice cream, which is my weakness, ice cream.
Yeah.
Because I thought, that's it, all my training's done for the weekend. So I'm
Done
doing
now.
this
Yeah.
test, and in many, many ways, it's the hardest test I've ever done. You know, I thought my leg was going to literally drop off, you know,
Gonna say like physically, mentally, all of it.
everything, all of it. But yeah, definitely
Yeah.
physically, because I mean, he's famous for using his left leg only. I basically use my right leg only mostly, because again, I do, again, jumping backwards, I still do sit more or less to the Bruce Lee idea of strong side
Okay.
forward, so I'm primarily right hand, right leg, and so on.
Yeah.
So I was using my right leg, doing all these multiple kicks, trying to keep my foot up in the air, not at head height. I wouldn't try and claim that,
Yeah.
and so on and so on. But at the end of it, I passed. I'm sitting on the floor, and it was really hot. And I pulled up my trousers, and my right calf was swollen like a balloon.
Yeah.
And he said, "What's wrong?" And I said, "Well, I've had deep vein thrombosis." And he said, "Why didn't you tell me?" I said, "Well, I didn't want to make no excuses." You know, so. Yeah, and that's one
Lucky
thing.
you.
I had deep vein thrombosis in 2016, and I'm on a blood thinner for life now. And they told me to stop doing martial arts and contact sports. I thought, yeah,
Nah.
okay, all right.
Not gonna
I mean,
happen.
I've had
Yeah.
to be careful now, cut down and be careful of things like sparring and everything. And
Yeah.
whereas from the Wing Chun, we had like what we call iron forearms.
Yeah.
Now, if I do that, I'll probably bruise, you know.
Boom. Get bruised up.
But
Yeah.
I've just had to adapt. Just like with anything, I'm 63 now. So in
Well,
some ways, I
exactly. Yeah.
feel like I'm much better than before. And then other things, of course, I'm not, you know. But you just
Yeah.
adapt. Just as in a fight. That's why,
Which
again, I've
martial art?
studied all these different arts, because you have to adapt to the
Yeah.
opponent and the situation.
Which martial art do you think has had like the strongest influence on your own development?
That's a great question, because it's slightly different to what most people always ask me. And I was expecting you to ask what everyone always says: out of all the arts you study, which one is the best? You know, that's what everyone
Mm.
always says. You know,
Nah.
and there's
Yeah.
no
Yeah.
to that question. I've always said if I put on a pair of Muay Thai shorts, nothing's better than Muay Thai. If I put
Yeah.
on a t-shirt and the Chinese trousers and Chinese slippers, nothing is better than Wing Chun. No
Sure.
uniform as such for JKD. If I'm doing JKD, nothing's better. If I put on the traditional gi and I'm kneeling and I'm doing judo or Japanese jiu-jitsu, nothing's better. When I put on what they call the
Sure.
kurtka, which is, I don't think that's the Russian jacket, and to me, there's nothing better than
Okay.
samba
Yeah.
or samba, and so on.
Yeah.
So it depends.
Sure.
Because I say one of the things I used to when I was teaching is wherever you are, be there. You know, boom,
Yeah.
you've got to have focus. Like a little pet hate of mine, I've been on many seminars and people are doing all their training, and I think you're having conversations, you're talking, you're laughing. My God, you know, again, that sort of points out to me, have you ever been in a real fight? You've got to, got to be there. If you're training, you're training. The socialising's outside afterwards or in between,
Yeah. It's
whatever.
that
But
mindset.
not when you're in the
Yeah.
middle of, say, doing a knife drill, you know. That happened at
No.
a certain seminar ago. I won't mention names. And I pulled everyone up on it. There was a whole load of JKD people, and I stood up and I pulled everyone up on it. I thought, this isn't, you know. I mean, I've just a little examples here. Most people they train with not even a knife. This is a fake knife, but it's a metal knife. Most people train with different types of foam or rubber knives, or
Yeah.
the knives with all the holes in them are very popular.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think, yeah, of course you have to do all that for safety. But I think most people have never felt a real knife.
True.
You know, it's
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
lot different when someone's coming at you with this, and you probably won't see this one.
Yeah.
And if
Horrible.
they're coming at you in the dark or whatever, or as I did on the seminar, again, I won't mention names, I'm talking about real knives. I said, you've got to get used to real knives.
Mm.
You know, and I said, most people have never even held or seen a real knife. I said, you've got to get used to it. And I
Yeah. It's
started doing all
horrific.
these
Isn't
sort of shaving motions.
it? Yeah.
And I mean, again, it sounds like I'm bigging myself up. I'm not. I'm just trying to make people understand why I think the way I do. I mean, I've actually in the past, I've had two of these Bowie knives held up against my neck, for real.
Wow.
And
Okay.
let's say I dealt with it and I survived. I've been chased down the road by gangs with machetes, and in fact, my friends, we saw. Oh, them guys, they're coming. They got machetes, and I wanted to stop and fight. I'm a little bit crazy, and I turned around. All my friends are starting running. I thought, oh, all right, I suppose I better join them. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
I've been in lots of real situations. Again, jumping back in the '70s. You're far too young to know, but there was a revival of something called the Teddy Boys from the
Yeah.
1950s.
Yeah. I've heard. Yeah.
So I was part of that because again, through my dad, I was brought up on Elvis and rock and roll, and that's still my music, you know. So I was part of that. I was in a gang. It was called the South London Teds, you know. It sounds,
Sure.
and through that, like anytime you're in a group, gang, whatever you want to call it, you don't have to look for trouble, but you tend to things happen to you. I've had situations with what they call the road rats, which is like a sort of an English version of Hell's Angels, involving shotguns and all kinds of stuff, all kinds of stuff. So anything I train, it's got to work for real. In fact, that's one of the things that eventually started putting me off doing the sambo training because I found myself, I'm looking for the submission, and because it's submission fighting.
Okay.
And I thought,
Yeah.
well, in the street, I wouldn't do that. If I was in
Yeah.
that particular situation,
Look for
I'm
the
just going to
break.
snap. I'm not going to wait for someone to tap or say something. I'm just going to snap or get up.
Yeah.
My grappling is to be able to grapple, so I don't have to grapple, if that makes sense. You have to know how to
And to grapple.
grapple.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you've got no chance. I mean, if you're on the ground with a grappler. So I want to know enough grappling to be able to hopefully overcome that and do yourself. But I'll use a lot of my real fights. I call it, verbal kung fu. I use my
Yeah.
voice a lot. I use a lot of body language because I studied neuro-linguistic programming and things like that, and body language. And I've won so many fights through my mouth, through my
Yeah. Yeah.
eyes,
It's
and through the
huge.
body language.
Yeah.
So I do like you should. I do everything I can to avoid trouble, but I've always made sure I'm 100% ready to deal with whatever faces me. The big thing about martial arts is if you're doing Muay Thai, which is absolutely amazing, but you're always fighting Muay Thai.
Sure.
If you're doing Wing Chun, it's great at the right time, but you're always against
Yeah.
someone doing Wing Chun. In the street or wherever it is, on the beach, wherever it is, you don't know if you're in a situation who you're facing, what they know, and so
Yeah.
on.
Yeah. It's unknown
So I don't.
quality. Yeah.
If after my mouth and my body language hasn't worked, if I have to fight, I'll tell you what, I'm coming for you with everything in the kitchen sink. I don't know what you know, but I don't want to find out what you know.
Of course. Yeah.
So I'm
Yeah.
just going to be all over you with everything. And
Spot on.
again, I mean, yeah, for instance, so many people say, oh, trapping doesn't work. And I always said, yeah, because you can't work trapping.
Yeah.
I
That's
could
what I
equally
say. Everything
say,
works. Nothing works.
yeah, I could equally say BJJ doesn't work if you don't work it enough.
Yeah.
I could equally say Muay Thai doesn't work
A
if you
jab
don't
doesn't
work
work.
it enough. It's the same with
Yeah.
trapping.
A
And
jab doesn't work if you don't hit it.
yeah, and also let's say I'm on the floor fighting, but I'm trying to do Muay Thai. Of course, Muay Thai is not going to work.
Sure.
Same thing if I'm trying to use trapping at the wrong time, if it's not going to work. But you should
Yeah.
never try to do anything.
No.
That's
It
the other thing.
happens. Yeah.
It's not the picture book. I enter in with this art and I do this art and I finish with this art. That's no. If I have to fight, I'm just coming at you, and I'm just going to be hitting you with something. And
Yeah.
depending on what you do or don't do, then that'll dictate what I do. People have said to me, have I ever done trapping in a real fight? And my honest answer is, I have no idea. Because if I did use it, it should
It's
have
that
happened in an instant
split
that
second.
even
Yeah.
I don't know. I
Bam. Done.
probably have trapped someone out of the way that carried on hitting them. Because
Yeah.
that's the goal, if you're in a fight, to hit them and hit them and hit them. Until, I don't mean they're on the floor and you're kicking them in the head and all that kind of rubbish.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about that. But until you know it's not a threat, it's not the old, ooh, my best shot, and they're still
Yeah.
standing there,
Yeah.
I blend the theory as well as techniques. For instance, I blend the theory of the straight blast of Wing Chun, but I might not be doing a straight
Yeah.
blast. I could be doing whatever. I could be doing grappling, but I'm doing a
Well, it's
straight
that forward
blast with,
pressure.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, rapid fire.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
going back to even when I was in school, I still remember some of the best fighters, the speed. It was just bang, 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 bang. They didn't give the other person a chance to do anything. And that's always worked for me as well. Especially, like I said,
Defense is a
because
good
most of my life I
option.
was a lot lighter. So I had to use speed, 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 and
Yeah.
ferocity. You know, uh, I, I'm not one of these martial artists. I oftentimes wish I could, that something happens, I'm all the calm, deal with it, and then all of a sudden explode. I'm the type, I explode. I explode
Yeah.
straight away, verbally, physically. And then if you want to come at me, well, come at me, I'm not saying it's the right way, but it's my way. It's worked for me. I've survived to this day,
I think that's the
that kind of
realistic
thing.
way, to be honest. Yeah. I think that's the
Well,
realistic way.
again, to me, it is realistic. It really is, because, again, I've seen people, you would look at, in real fights, you look at them and you think, oh, look, they've got no style. Look how, they're windmilling. Well, if you're going to criticise windmilling, you've never been on the end of windmilling. There's a
Yep.
reason
And
why I
does
think
it
it's in
work?
the Royal Marines and the
Yeah.
Parachute Regiment. They put on the boxing gloves and they say, even if you know how to
Just
box
fine.
or martial arts, I don't want to see that. I want to see windmilling.
Yeah.
Constant aggression. Because that's
Just
the other
fight.
thing.
Yeah.
We use the terms, and again, I'm not saying it's right. We use the terms like rolling and playing and sparring, whatever. And sometimes people then lose sight of a fight. A fight is horrible. It's bloody. It's brutal. It's disgusting. It's all these horrible negative things. It can be life-threatening. So that's why I've tried to be as brutal, as nasty as I should say, to have the knowledge to be as brutal and nasty as I can be, shall we say, call it the top of the ladder, so that I don't have to quite maybe hopefully go that far, you know?
Yeah, sure.
I'd rather know how to quote unquote kill and not have to than be in a position where I've got no idea what to do and be the one who's killed, you know? You've got to be realistic. I mean, the most unrealistic thing, in my opinion, in martial arts is to do with weapons, which is usually a knife. You know, of course, it's the guns as
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
but anyway. And of course, what does everyone always say, which really does my head in, to be honest? If someone pulls a knife on you, your best defense is to run. Wow, I never thought of that. That is so true.
Mm-hmm.
I hate the obvious being stated. Of course, you run if you can, but there's another side to
Of
that.
course.
One, what if you're older? What if you're injured? Whatever. What if you're carrying a backpack that you can't run? The person pulling the
What if
knife
you're
on you
with
is
your
likely to be
family?
much younger,
Yeah.
especially
What
these
if you're
days,
with your kids?
unfortunately.
What if you're with your wife? What if you're with your husband, etc.? Yeah.
That's the next thing I was going to say. What if you're with someone, a friend, a wife, a girlfriend,
Yeah.
anyone? What, you're going to run off and
Yeah.
leave them, you know? So a real
Yeah.
knife fight, and again, a lot of the drills are not real. I'm sorry, they're just not real. A real knife fight is, and I love Bob Breen. I know you know Bob well. I've known Bob for so many years as well. I remember doing a knife seminar with him, and I love his attitude because it's the same as me. It's like, yeah, you pull a knife on me, you pull a knife on me. Yeah, so what, you know? If you're going to keep thinking, oh, I'm going to get, because that's the other thing. Everyone said, you're going to get cut no matter what you're. Well, straight away, you thought you're brainwashing yourself to think, oh, well, that's it, I'm going to get cut and all that. I don't. I don't
Yeah.
think like that, whether it's realistic or not. I think,
Yeah.
I'll give you one little example. I was in a situation with someone. Of course, I break the own rules that I teach everyone about. Like, always have one or two hands up. My hands are down. I'm arguing with someone,
Yeah.
and I just saw them. Again, it's hard to show it, but they just put their hand back, and I always make a joke. They could be just going to scratch their rear end for all I know. But I didn't take that. I just went boom. One of my favourite
Bam.
strikes, an
Yeah.
open hand slap to their face. And I was right. The knife just went flying across the floor that they were trying to pull on me.
Mm-hmm.
And they just looked there totally shocked because it's that shock value, you know. And it doesn't come across the same way when I say it now, but with, again, my eyes and my mouth and the way I was saying it. And I said, if you even think of picking up that knife, I swear to God, I'm going to ram it down your throat and cut your heart out. Needless
Mm-hmm.
to say, they didn't make no attempt to go the knife and they just went on their way. And that's what I say about winning
Yeah.
situations with verbal and body language. And you've got, but a lot of martial artists, one, they wouldn't have reacted to see that move. The knife would have been pulled. I
No.
think they would freeze completely because they've never seen a real knife, or they start thinking, "Oh, it's a real knife. It's a real knife." But you've got to, again, that Hockheim, who we mentioned, he's brilliant for teaching all that kind of stuff as well. You
Yeah.
know. I remember
Reality.
he did a
Yeah.
seminar at my school and it was going really good. And he came up to me and in my ear he says, is there a few of the guys here that you trust that we could do a little bit extra later? I won't charge them anything. And I said, yeah, of course. He said, what? He goes, we're going to do some assassination techniques.
Right.
He
Okay.
was
Yeah.
teaching us assassination techniques because he's ex-military as well. He's teaching us
Yeah.
assassination techniques with a knife. Now,
Yeah.
most people, why would you want to learn that? I think it's knowledge. I'm armed with knowledge. If I know how to assassinate someone, I'm more aware of someone else
You can
trying to use
flip it.
those techniques
Yeah.
on
You
me.
can flip it that way.
You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's again, it's like the martial arts that don't do any weapons, but they do weapon defense. I think that's nonsense. You know, you cannot defend against punching if you don't know how to punch. For instance, you've got to
Sure.
know how to do these things to be able to defend against them. Otherwise, it's just something so foreign to you. And again, I keep repeating myself. That's why I've not limited myself to one thing because I don't know what I would face in a real life situation. It could be someone much taller, it could be someone much shorter, it could be someone much bigger, thinner, it could be someone armed with a knife, a gun, a stick, a chain, it could be
Yeah.
multiple opponents, it could be someone who's very skilled in grappling or kicking or struck. I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't know what it's going to be. So I've got
So
to
many
have a
variables.
decent amount of knowledge to face whatever might come at me.
Of
You know?
course. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
a lot of that knowledge has to be the mental side of it, if you want to call it the spiritual side of it. I mean, I don't know if most martial arts do, but I still do meditation, and I cut
Okay.
out the world by putting on my earphones. And
Yeah.
I've told you I'm still a Batman nut. I put on my Batman eye mask.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice.
And when I say I meditate, yeah, I do meditate, not as much as I should or as I used to, but I do a lot of visualization. So
Okay.
visualize circumstances, visualize situations, so that if something
Yeah.
happens, I've been there, I've done that. You know, that's not so foreign to me.
Yeah.
Uh,
You've seen it happen
do you know
already.
what? You asked me a question. I went vroom 100 miles ahead with something else. It was similar to what I said about which is the best martial art. Can you remember what your actual question
Yeah.
was?
Yeah, you kind of answered it, I think. But I said, what was the one that has had the most impact on your
Oh yeah,
own
yeah,
personal
yeah, yeah.
development?
Well, you know, I could kind of put that in a nutshell and say Bruce Lee and Jeet Kune, because you could say that kind of does cover everything in that
It's a
sense.
bit
Because without
encompassing.
Bruce,
Yeah, it's the umbrella term.
yeah, exactly, and without Bruce, again, there's so many people now who say, "Oh, he was just an actor." I think, "Oh my God, you know, you just know nothing. You know, you absolutely know nothing." And even some famous martial artists, they say he was just an actor, or he wouldn't have beaten me in real life, whatever. I think, forget it, because if it wasn't for Bruce, we probably wouldn't be doing martial arts. I don't, you know,
Exactly.
it was
Yeah, he
such
just
a,
sparked
it's
that
still a
initial.
very
Yeah.
micro community, despite what we might think. But back in
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
60s, 70s, and so on, it was almost non-existent. Of course, there was people doing judo and karate. I mean, Bob Breen was great. He was doing his Wadaroo karate and
Right. Yeah.
judo. So yes, of course there's people doing it, but we're still talking about such a minute fraction of people. It what,
Yeah.
and of course with David Carradine, the Kung Fu series that helped explode it. But I don't care what anyone says, it was Bruce Lee that done it. I don't think you'd have seen Sylvester Stallone and Schwarzenegger doing the kind of action movies, let alone the things like what's the Matt Damon movie? The Bourne movies and things
Oh,
like.
yeah. Yeah.
I don't think we'd have seen any of that. Well, it's unlikely we'd have seen any of that if it hadn't been Bruce Lee. Because
Yeah.
people say, "Oh, well, there was kung fu movies." Yeah, have you seen them early kung fu movies, or even
Doink
ones
doink,
after
flying
Bruce
around
Lee?
all over the place. Yeah.
Yeah, and see what they were like. Again, I won't mention names because it's talking about some of my teachers. Absolutely fantastic, world class, real martial artists. But they've made some movies. I think, oh my God, that don't look good.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, there's a difference. But that's why
Yeah.
then some people say, oh, yeah, well, Bruce Lee looked good in movies only. But look, yeah, again, I I got to a point where I used to get, Facebook, whatever it would be, what's the point of trying to change someone's opinion? Everyone's got an opinion. That's why there's
No.
millions doing one religion, millions doing another religion. They all
Exactly.
think their religion
Everyone's
is the
entitled to
only
their opinion.
religion. So it's the same with
Yeah. Of
martial
course.
arts. Everyone thinks
Yeah.
they know this. Fine, great, get on with it. I'll get on with my own training, do what I want to do, you know. So
Which,
the
ironically,
martial
was
arts
what
give me
Bruce
the
was all
most, I
about.
said, in a broad spectrum, it's Jeet Kune Do if you want to do it. Although, to me, there's a lot of controversy about what JKD is now and so on. But uh, I've still got that very heavy background in Wing Chun. You know, it'll always be very much
Yeah.
part of me, because very much so. Like I said, I love them all. I love that the Russian sambo or sambo. I think that should be get a lot more recognition. It is such an amazing, multifaceted art, because you basically got
Yeah.
sambo wrestling, the sport. You've got things like combat sambo, which is more or less like MMA. Then you've got something like
Yeah.
military sambo, which I love. You know, which is like what the Russian special forces Spetsnaz do. That's something
Yeah.
else. I mean, I give you an example. When I was doing sambo wrestling, I did one of the competitions I lost up there grappling, and the guy he might have tripped me, but it felt more like he just shoved me. I lost my balance and fell on the floor. I lost the
Mhm.
match
Done.
because
Yeah.
the way they look at it is because of the military background. If you're on your back, the next thing is the guy's going to shoot you or put a
Done.
bayonet
Yeah.
through you. So it still has that kind of background in it, you know. Uh,
Yeah. Sure.
so many, and when you do sambo wrestling, I don't like the fact, for instance, you can't do chokes, you know,
Okay.
but it's absolutely legendary for its leg locks, which,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, yeah, they're absolutely, there's something else, whatever, they really are, Don't work on everyone, work on, my son, he was excellent at any grappling art, really good. He even went and started doing professional wrestling at one time, but he was really good. I was teaching him the sambo and so on. And we were at I can't remember if it was a British Championship, but it was at a competition. The next thing, his name was called out and my name was called. I thought, oh, I can't go up there and fight with my son. Do you know what I mean? So straight away, the fight went out of me, but I'm partly using it as an excuse because whatever, we're fighting, boom, boom. We ended up on the floor. We both got into more or less the same position, ready to an ankle lock. And I thought, oh no, because I knew with my son, basically what happened, I'm there and I'm really trying to put on the lock. He's just holding my leg, not even doing anything. And he's smiling at me. And I'm adjusting, because it just didn't work on him. And I knew it wouldn't. And then he kind of got bored of it. He just put on, tap. So nothing works all of the time. Nothing. I don't care. Yeah. Why do you need to learn chokes? Well, what if someone's high on certain drugs and so on and so on? You know, you can punch them and kick them and break bones and so on. I told you, if someone broke my arm in a street fight or got me in a position, I might tap. I might, because they might have been brainwashed watching MMA or whatever. But I tell you what, as soon as they let go, I'm going to be up. I saw one of your videos. I loved it. I'm going to go up and try and ram their head into the wall or something. Yeah. You know, or go picks up, because it's a fight. It's not a sport. It's a fight. You know, one of the things I used to do in my classes when I was teaching the grappling as part of the Tangle and Combat / JKD, or if it was a specific Sambo class, they're down on the floor grappling my students, and I'll just chuck a knife on the floor. Not one of them real sharp ones, you know. And it's whoever got the knife first. Other times I might prearrange that one of them had a knife on them, and at the first sign of he's in trouble, I pull that knife out and start using it, and so on, you know. So again, even when I was doing the sports side of it, if you want to call it, I tried to make things realistic. I mean, I've seen a lot of. I've got to try and be politically correct. To be honest, I'm not the most politically correct person, and
fuck it.
I've seen a lot of even. No, I won't. I won't mention any names. But I've seen some really top JKD guys. They're doing all whatever, whatever. And of course, most of them are in the left lead and all that, blah blah blah, whatever. And they're doing a takedown, and then they're dropping to the floor to get a submission hold. And I'm thinking, what the hell are you doing? You know, the last thing in the world I want to be on a fight is on the floor. If I end up on the floor, yes, I need to know how to deal with it, but I'm not going to go to the floor. If I do manage to take someone down, that's when I'm stomping on their ankles or stomping on their knee, or I may go and do some ground and pound type stuff, but it's very, very unlikely I'm down the floor trying to do an arm lock or any kind of thing like that, or get them on where I can get them into a chokehold. I love standing chokes and all this kind of stuff, but I do not want to be on the floor. I have been in like I said, many real fights, and I remember, what was it? I remember that there was two guys having a street fight. They ended up on the floor, and someone else who I actually knew him as a friend, and to this day I don't know why he done it, because he didn't particularly even know these guys. He run over and starts stabbing one of them. Horrible, horrible. So people have like I said, a misconception of what reality is. It is horrible. It's brutal. It's so unexpected. Again, Hockheim calls it the chaos of combat, and it is. It's chaotic. There's so much going on. The emotions, this, that, everything. I remember another time. This wasn't me, but a good friend of mine. Again, talking about real fighting. He was fighting, and there was a guy huge, much bigger than him, and he was on top of him, and he was. We would call it ground and pound now, but bang, 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 bang. And my friend's fighting instinct, he kind of he was moving about, and he managed to pick up half a brick, and he starts splitting the guy's head with it. And then the guy collapsed on him, he was out, and he couldn't shift him because of his weight. And my friend's girlfriend, like, she went to pull the guy at the same time, and she grabbed him by the hair, and his scalp just split with being smashed into the brick. You know, this is reality. I know I'm laughing at, but of course that's horrible. It's disgusting. And I could go on all day about real stories, but most people just don't know the reality. And that's what I say, when you train, if you're doing like one of our Filipino knife draws or a JKD knife draw, because again, sometimes that's too blended, too confused for me, but whatever, you've got to make it real, because it is nowhere near real. I don't mean use a real knife, but be aware of real knives, but at least do it like it's real, not a pretty flowing sequence, which, of course, we step one, step two, step through. We've got to learn it. But then you've got to make this real. Like if I'm
Yeah,
doing something like I'm going to elbow someone in the head, I don't want to do whether you're doing a hooba drill or whatever, like elbow hooba. I love. Yeah, you're
yeah,
doing the drill. Okay,
bam.
fine. But if I'm doing a self defense sequence, like blah blah, I'm coming on.
Yeah,
It's like I have to stop myself trying to cave your head in. But I've got
yeah,
a in my head, I've got to have that feeling. I'm going to crush your skull.
yeah. It's the
Because
intensity you train with, and the martial versus the art, isn't it? You've got to have both sides to it. You've got to have the drill, but then you've got to know how to apply the drill as well.
exactly. People, I think too many people forget what this martial art warlike are. It's a
Yeah,
warlike art.
yeah.
No war is nice.
No, and
There's
again, it depends what you want to do it for. A lot of people, as you said, they just want to do it for fitness. They want to do it for health. They want to do it for all that to get moving because it's more fun than the gym, isn't it? Like hitting some pads, kicking some stuff.
100%. And don't get me wrong, I'm for all of that. And all the
But
when I had to school for what 23 years, I
yeah,
taught hundreds and hundreds of students. And
yeah,
some people say you can either teach adults or you teach children. Especially in America, they have that attitude. Your school's either got to be for children or for adults. Why? From a certain time, I was teaching children with a certain mindset, and then from
yeah,
the next, I mean,
yeah.
my youngest students were 4 years of age.
Mm-hmm.
Was I teaching them BUG and eye jabs? And of course I
No,
wasn't. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
I
yeah,
was
yeah,
teaching them basic stranger danger and stuff like
yeah, of
teaching them
course.
how to defend crossing the road. I was teaching them
Yeah,
things like that. Defend if you're in a house that was on fire in the smoke. So I'd have them crawling through play tunnels and stuff like that.
yeah,
And then the next group of children, of course, start doing bully buster, learning how to deal with bullies and non-verbal self-defense. And we do a lot of drills where in front of each other, how to de-escalate anger management we used to do, and things like that.
yeah,
I'd get them in huddle and I'd teach them about standing in front of a mirror and saying, I love myself. I love myself. I know it sounds weird, but you've got to love yourself before other people will love you, and you've got to have that confidence in yourself and so on. And then, of course, I was teaching individual classes for adults, and so many of them, especially in the latter years, many of them were coming just for another form of exercise and things like. When
yeah,
I
of course.
first started school, it was much more the old kind of blood and guts type thing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I did, I suppose, running a business. I did have to tone that down throughout the years
yeah. It's
and
niche.
reserve it for those who were tough enough,
It's niche.
so to
Yeah,
speak.
it's just
In
being
fact,
honest.
one of my
Go on. I've said this before on the
what
podcast though. But I've said it's just staying in your lane and being honest to what you're doing. So if
you
you're
have
teaching
to,
boxercise, great, but just say you're teaching boxercise. Don't say I'm teaching
yeah,
self defense as well because you're throwing punches. It's not the same.
you
And
you
it's like, okay,
you
stay
hit
in
the
your
nail on
lane.
the head.
Be honest
Yeah,
about what you're doing. If you're teaching a
yeah,
fun, fitness drill, with Muay Thai elements, say I'm doing
yeah,
that with Muay Thai elements. If you're teaching a reality based thing where it's like, okay, this is for a select group of people now, where we're really going to ramp
yeah,
it up. We're going to put the gum shields in. We're going to put the headgear on. You're going to go full out. You're going to dance with the devil in the academy or whatever. But
yeah,
know that
yeah,
it's not for everyone. But you need to differentiate.
exactly,
And for the majority of people, they don't want that. They just want to go and smash some pads and feel like a bit of a warrior for an hour and then leave with a good sweat on and think, oh, I've learned something. And then if they want a deep dive, they will do. But, that's not the majority.
exactly.
We're a rare breed,
Yeah, and
George.
you've
I
hit the
think. We don't
nail
want to
ahead
get
on
down dirty
the
and,
nail
yeah,
on the head. As long as you tell them,
yeah,
what it's for, what it's doing, that's fine. I mean, look at the other way around. What if you was teaching a class that was kind of a boxer size type class, but that person had come to learn reality self defense? Or maybe
exactly.
it was a lady who'd been raped or something in the past. You think, this wouldn't help me, you know? So
No,
as long as you tell them what this is for, or actually, I mean, all the paperwork, I used to have questionnaires like, what are you looking for? And that's why, of course, I miss having a school. Many times I miss having a school. But with the private students, I can really, really get down to their
yeah,
personality and learn them.
yeah.
I mean, one of my private students in the past, he's actually in the Guinness Book of Records as the world's highest paid hairdresser. You know,
Right.
24 grand for cutting a lady's hair.
Look, we're in the
But
wrong
that's
job.
another story. So he knew about me. And one time he ran a radio show on the side and he interviewed me there. So he knew all about me and everything. And he'd done some BJJ in the past and stuff like that. But he was at a nightclub once and the ex-boyfriend of the girl he was with come up, attacked him, headbutted him, all the rest of it, and chased him down the West End of London.
Hmm.
He phones me up. He was all shaken and whatever. And he said he's going to start doing lessons with some customer of his. I said, what do you mean? I got annoyed with him. I said, what do you mean? He goes, don't you? And he was the kind of guy, if you wanted to see him, you had to literally book an appointment, just have a coffee with him like 3 months
Sure.
in advance.
Yeah,
Literally,
yeah.
that's how busy he was. I said to I was going to say his name, but maybe I shouldn't. I said to him, what do you mean you're going to go with so-and-so? I said, I'm coming to meet you this afternoon. You know, I knew where his salon was down in the West End. I said, I knew where we go for coffee. And this, I'm going to meet you there. You be there at such and such a time, you know. His mindset. So I was starting to do a real Kato from the Pink Panther movies type thing on him. He'd come into my
Yeah, yeah.
garage gym at the time. He'd step in. I'd say, oh, hi. Blah, blah, blah. I'm trying not to say his name. Shake his hands, whatever. Blah, blah, and I'd turn around, I'd be locking the door, and then I'd turn on and I'd scream at him, I'd shout at him, I'd grab hold of him or whatever. But one time I did it the wrong way round. He'd come in and he had his back to the garage doors and I shoved him and he crashed through the doors and snapped the lock off out onto the street. It
Right.
got to
Yeah,
the
yeah.
point where,
Yeah.
and I said to him, because he knew he'd probably face this guy again, I said, I tell you what, when you see this
Mm.
guy again, you either deal with it properly, you know, or what's going to happen is I'm going to come along, I will deal with him, but then I'm going to come along and kick your butt for embarrassing me as a student, you know. And
Mhm. Yeah,
anyway,
yeah.
I taught him all real basic stuff, real basic, and more the mindset, like I said. He eventually did face the guy. He kind of taught me a porky about it. He said, yeah, I faced him. I done some of the non-verbal stuff that you taught me and so on, and he backed down. And then when there was, I can't remember, it must be a few years later, there was these knife attacks on London Bridge and everything, the terrorists.
Mm.
And that got him
Mm.
thinking of it all again. And he wanted me to teach him some knife defense. But this time he couldn't come to me. I had to go to his salon in the West End. And I'm
Right.
sitting there waiting for all the customers to leave and all that. Then I start teaching realistic knife work, really realistic work,
Sure.
where I'm coming in and screaming and shouting. And people out in the streets were looking in. I'm surprised no one called the police or anything, you know.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm sort of gone off on a tangent there. But yeah, teaching them again realistic. It had to be realistic, you know.
It
I
does.
didn't start
Yeah.
doing all these little drills and whatever else, just realistic. Let's leave it at that, you know. So I'm
Yeah, yeah.
waffling on again. So
No.
you're going back to your question, which martial art has given me the best? It's hard for me to say. And that's why, rather than sort of which individual martial art, I prefer to say the martial arts.
Yeah,
The
sure.
martial arts. The thing that really, really got me on, I mean, I was already doing martial arts, always seen all the magazines, all the Kung Fu Monthly and all these magazines back in the 70s. Everything was Kung Fu and Bruce Lee back in the 70s. You wouldn't believe it. All my underwear as a kid was Bruce Lee in my underwear. And
Yeah,
you
yeah.
could buy the sweet cigarettes, which you don't call them that now, candy
I know
sticks.
what you
It
mean.
was all
Yeah, yeah.
Bruce
Candy
Lee
sticks.
on it. And everything was
Yeah.
just Bruce Lee and Kung Fu. Everything. Packets of crisps. Of course, you had the old high karate, all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I went, and at the time they had what they call it, it's 18s out, it was X movies, you know,
Yeah,
you had
yeah.
to be 18. And all Kung Fu and Bruce Lee were X movies. But they were doing the late night movies. Again, I think it's 11 o'clock until the early hours of the morning, showing Kung Fu movies, you know. And I think it's probably 74, I'm not sure, but I was about 12, and my dad brought me to a late night Bruce Lee movie. And I'm there walking in with a handkerchief over my face like a kid, trying to hide my face. He said, what are you doing? You know, stop being stupid. No one's going to stop you, you know. Of course they
Yeah,
wouldn't,
yeah.
especially when I'm with him, like, you know.
Yeah.
So I went in, it was Fist of Fury.
Nice.
I sat there, my life was completely changed from that moment on.
Done. Yeah.
Literally, that was it. I want to be Bruce Lee. At the time, I wanted to get Bruce Lee haircuts, all that kind of stuff. Never did, but I wanted to be Bruce Lee, and it was nothing grand. I want to be, this monk master. No, I want to be able to kick all these people's butts like he did, and so on and so on. And
Yeah,
because
yeah.
his personality, that was a bit like me, a bit crazy, you know. And that was everyone talks about Into the Dragon, which of course is a fantastic movie, but Fist of Fury is a special place in my heart because that
With
set
you.
me on this path. So now that I'm not someone who does martial arts, let alone individual martial, I'm not someone who does martial arts. Like yourself, I'm sure I am a martial artist. I am martial arts. I could no more not do it than I can do anything else, eat and drink and sleep and so on, you know. It's
Yeah,
just what you
sure.
do, it's what you become. So if I get into a situation, which obviously now I try not to, I try to be a little bit more mellow at my age. But if I do, I don't sort of get into a Wing Chun mode or a Muay Thai mode, or I think, oh, got into a grappling. No, I don't, because I don't know what's going to happen. I'll
Sure.
just deal with what happens. Hopefully, deal with
Yeah,
it and survive.
yeah.
That's it, you know.
The
So
way.
I can't pinpoint which has given me the most. I've been doing Wing Chun. You could say I've done judo the longest because I haven't stopped doing judo. I don't go training it anymore as such. But I started when I was 11, and I still got aspirations to maybe do my black belt under Martin Clark, that's now passed. But his son John Clark is doing a great job of carrying everything on. And I talked to him at Martin's funeral actually a few years back about maybe doing it. But now I've
Yeah,
got this thing about the blood clots. I'm supposed to avoid contact
yeah.
sports, so if I do the judo
Thing.
grading, it'd be what they'd probably call a technical grading, like to
Yeah,
have
sure.
patters and so on, and demonstrate the throws. But I probably wouldn't be a good idea to get
Not
thrown
around
about
Orly.
myself.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
I
George,
think I
it's been.
mentioned to you before, out of all
Go
the
on, sorry.
martial arts I've done, it's always the grappling arts which have caused me injuries. The broken arm, I've had a broken ribs, I've had broken toes,
Yeah,
so on and so. But no, I've had the odd cut lip from maybe Wing Chun and from kickboxing type thing, but nothing serious, you know. Not even a black eye, you know.
that's
I
good.
had a real. I think the worst black eye I ever had was I was in a sambo competition, and we're on the floor rolling about, whether boom, his knee comes smack straight in my eye, you know,
Yeah,
nearly
it
knocked me
happens, doesn't
out.
it? Yeah, square
Yeah,
knee or an elbow or something. Yeah, whoops.
yeah. I
George,
mean, I
it's
have
been
toyed
a
with the idea
pleasure.
of sorry.
It's been a pleasure, but I'm going to have to cut you
Oh,
off, I'm
thank you.
afraid.
Sorry,
I'm
you
sure.
can't stop me
Yeah.
once I start.
No, no, it's all good. It's absolutely fascinating. Obviously, what a big pedigree in terms of the people you've met, the people you've been certified from, the experiences you have. Like, yeah, it's fantastic.
Thank
And
you.
yeah, thank you for appearing on the podcast. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for inviting me, Dan. I love it. Thank you very much. You're doing a great job out there. Plus,
Thank you,
with your
sir.
own training, with your school, I'll look down, of
All
course,
the
this
best.
podcast. You're
Yeah,
doing a
thank
great
you.
job.
I appreciate
Multi-talented. Well,
it.
multi-task.
Yeah, I'm a keen amateur in many things. Yeah, we'll have to hook up soon, George. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very
And
much, Dan.
yeah, thank you.